Cool. All right, let's dive into it. For those of you that have never been to one of these, this is our fourth now customer weekly webinar. A bit of a mouthful, but the purpose of these webinars is to one, give our customers both on the Webgility Desktop and the Webgility Online side of things some, I guess, much needed information. Being that David is an implementation, I also came from implementation myself. We sort of saw a lot of common things when we would run through implementations and a lot of, I guess, problems or situations that customers found themselves in. So we're sort of starting off with those scenarios and sort of the basic level knowledge of what Webgility does and how we fit into the whole ecosystem for e-commerce. And we're tackling those conversations first, and sort of linearly, we're going to move on to more complicated topics and get into more in-depth conversations. But also use this time as a an opportunity to ask questions. We won't be able to answer any questions directly related to your subscription. If you have like billing questions, technical related questions, we might be able to dip into them a little bit, but ultimately we'll probably have to get you with somebody on the billing or support team to make sure that your issue is fixed. But I do encourage asking questions either in the question and answer box or in the chat. Both are perfectly fine. If we don't get to them in the moment while we're in the middle of a conversation, we will get to them at the end after David does his demo. So just to quickly introduce ourselves, my name is John May. I am the engagement manager for Webgility. If you've been to any of our webinars, seen any of our YouTube videos, called into our IVR, you see my face, hear my voice. It's pretty common at this point. And then David Pond is our senior implementation specialist. Say hi, David.
Hi, David.
That'll never get old to me. Uh, Perfect. And he comes from a long background of implementation, both on the Webgility Online and desktop side. So he knows it all as far as Webgility goes. Quick agenda. We'll just get into the I guess fundamentals of manual data entry, why we're even having this conversation, and then we'll sort of pivot into a demo that David will go over sort of all the different ways that Webgility can cut down on that manual data entry or that manual work, and then we'll end it with a Q&A. So just to start off, again, go over the foundations. I know this topic is kind of very general, maybe a little airy, but ultimately we thought it was a good idea to go over sort of the, I guess, pivotal use case for Webgility is that we sort of pride ourselves on cutting down manual data entry for e-commerce businesses, right? Like that's our whole thing is that if you have things that you're doing manually, either yourself or a warehouse worker or somebody on the bookkeeping team, you can sort of cut out the manual, mundane data entry part of things and have people focus on things that matter, right? Like growing the business. So, manual data entry can be anything from, taking your orders and copying information into QuickBooks via your online store orders and having to put all that information onto a sales receipt manually or a purchase order or any of the different, types of orders that you have. And then it extends into inventory management and making sure that prices are up to date. So everything that Webgility touches essentially affects that manual data entry. So what we're going to talk about is all of the different ways that Webgility Desktop can sort of alleviate that pressure and give you more time, again, back in your day or to focus on the things that matter for the business. Um, but yeah, I think I go a little longer on these beginning parts, but I want to make sure we get into the meat and potatoes of it. And I think that sort of explains everything, right? Is that the the biggest focus for us is to save you guys, our customers, time, saves you money, and gives you more power to control the business. So with that, we'll go over to the demo and let David start sort of walking through these concepts and kind of pointing things out within the desktop software. So let me kill my screen share if I can find the button. There we go.
Yep, and I'll share my screen.
And like I said at the beginning, some of the information that we go over will be introductory, some that you might not have heard of, but ultimately this is going to be an opportunity again for you guys to ask questions and for us to sort of talk more about the ways in which you can utilize Webgility to improve the business. I think it's important to speak to these things that both appeal to newer customers. If you're a newer customer, hey, thank you. And the existing customers that have been using Webgility for a long time. So,
All right. Hopefully you can see my screen now.
yep.
All right. So like you said, and I'm going to note that we have Webgility Desktop for today. And we do a separate webinar for the desktop and for the online. There are differences in Webgility between desktop and online version of Webgility. One of the big differences is inventory controls, advanced inventory controls. We're pairing Webgility Online with QuickBooks Online, and we're pairing Webgility Desktop with QuickBooks Enterprise Desktop. QuickBooks Enterprise Desktop has a lot more inventory controls. So that's one of the reasons you would end up more on a desktop version than an online version is if you have different warehouse locations or more inventory control that you need, like maybe you're doing unit of measure, maybe you're doing, like I said, multiple warehouses. So there's a few things that really works better on the desktop version. And when you talk to our people, then they'll kind of figure out what version fits your workflow the best. And workflow is kind of one of the key takeaways here. There's like 29 different stores and marketplaces that Webgility connects to, and everybody does their accounting different. Imagine that.
Yeah.
And we're talking, e-commerce accounting, and that means, you've got all these orders up in your website and you're trying to get them into QuickBooks. Taking and manually doing that I see a lot of customers, they start out with their online stores, they're manually putting orders into QuickBooks. Pretty soon they can't keep up with that. They start journaling it because it's taking too much time. But really what you want is you want all the information from the online store to get into your accounting properly. And that way you can have your books give you the proper reporting on what's happening with your business. So the errors and inconsistencies you can get from copying and pasting order data causes all sorts of issues. People miss putting in their merchant fees. They miss putting in shipping fees. You want that data to go into QuickBooks so that when you're doing your reconciliations and stuff, that things tie out properly.
Yeah, and sort of another point to add here, because I know you mentioned sort of the difference between our online and our desktop product. Obviously, everybody here, we've sort of kind of positioned this webinar as more of a desktop webinar specifically this week. But ultimately, I think that the biggest difference between the two is going to generally be complexity. So with Webgility Desktop being so complex, that means that there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize it to fit your workflow. Since everybody, like David said, has a different accounting flow or a different way of doing things, there's a lot of different, knobs and levers to pull to be able to kind of get it to do what you want. So,
Yep.
and then I
And
see Stefan asked to raise his hand. I can we've never had somebody raise their hand to talk, so I'll allow you to talk, and if you have a question, that's perfect.
Thank you. How are you?
Great, man. Great. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I'm a longtime user of Webgility, and I love the product. And to David's point about everybody doing accounting differently and the complexities of it, and especially when it comes to posting, is one of the things that we'll be covering or can be covered, be posting from orders that are processed through different payment processors that have and currencies, because that seems to be a big issue that we're running into, where we have different methods of payment and we operate over different currencies and wanting to make sure that goes into the proper accounts into QuickBooks.
so I'm going to jump in. Thanks for asking the question. Thanks, Stefan, for that.
Steve's fine. Thank you.
Stephen. The currencies, multiple currencies, those get a little bit tricky. Having a lot of different payment processors, that gets a little tricky. But in in Webgility itself, we're building more controls all the time. Like we're on 9.9 here on the version. And we typically want to separate out the multiple currencies to go into QuickBooks, and you have multiple currencies in QuickBooks. We have to match up like the customer, the bank, and the vendor so that the currencies post properly with the fees and the order information. But we've got some newer controls here, even in our software, where we're looking at, because people have like apps and plugins and other types of things in the stores, not just payment methods. And we're working on separating out the payment providers better in Webgility. So we do have some stuff in the works, and we've been adding more. So the configurations, in order to tie this out so that you can do your reconciliation better, you do want to take your different payment providers, because you get a different, you get a different bank statement from them. So you want to have those go into different buckets, different clearing accounts and such. Also, if like you're a longtime customer and you're still having some issues, by all means, reach out to us and get a refresher session so that we can go in and verify if you're in, if there's any more settings that would help you fine tune your configuration and make it easier for you. But
Yeah,
yes,
Steve,
it's a good
after the
question.
webinar, I'll get with our support team and have them take a look at your account, and we can reach out and make sure that that things are optimized as it should be. Like David said, we're improving constantly, and I think if there's a way that we can make the multiple currency situation work a little bit better with different payment methods, then I think that's a good idea. We have a lot of customers that use multiple currencies that it does tend to be a little bit of a headache. I think just by the nature of having multiple currencies and VATs and stuff like there's just so many, like we said, complexities to it. So I'll get with the team and we'll follow up with you.
That-
If we have some time at the end, maybe we can sort of dive in and explore that multiple currency situation a little bit more. I would love to have a webinar later in the future where we talk sort of exclusively about multiple currencies, because it
I'm
is
down with that. Yeah, we could
yeah.
actually just do, talk about multiple currencies and payment providers, that kind of thing. So that's a good topic. We'll put that on
Definitely.
the
I've already
burner
noted
there.
it, so that's
Yep.
perfect.
That's great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate
Yeah.
your
Thank you, man.
attention.
Yep. All right. So what I'm gonna show here is this is Webgility Desktop. We're going very visible. Okay. I hear people all the time talking about like apps and plugins and stuff like that. And we're the full-blown app. So you get to see what's happening with Webgility. These are orders coming in. Each of these orders, if you click on them, you can see the order details. You can see the customer information. Here you can see like a payment processor fee. All important stuff. When you do post something to QuickBooks, you can have a direct link to it, so you can go and open it directly in QuickBooks and see how it posted. Up here in the top right, you can see I've got a bunch of stores connected. I got BigCommerce, Lightspeed, Magento. I've got a couple of Shopify's, a WooCommerce. So we have a lot of different stores. They do configure differently. They do have different options. That's part of the complexity of e-commerce. Not all the online stores are exactly the same. And it is kind of like an e-commerce workflow for accounting, because like say you have an Amazon FBA store, they give you a payout report every 2 weeks. Typical accounting would say you're going to close at the end of a month. Well, Amazon's not going to close at the end of a month. It's got a 2-week payout, and that payout never ends on the end of a month. So there's some complexities there with having e-commerce. Once we get it all configured, we test it and make sure all the settings are correct. I'm just going to show you here. We have a lot of different settings. That's why we like to kind of give you a white glove, talk about your workflow, make sure you're set up that way. We go through and work on all the transaction settings, just everything that you need to set up and get into your accounting, and make sure that they're going into the proper accounts and everything. So we set that all up. Once that's tested and proven, we then can go into running an automation. We have a scheduler. There are settings in the scheduler those settings can sync the orders into Webgility, then from Webgility into your accounting. We can also take quantity numbers from accounting and sync those back to the websites so you can help control your inventory. So
Yeah, and I think sort of to kind of expand upon the scheduler stuff. When we talk about automation and I guess removing manual data entry, removing manual work, there's sort of I guess two levels to it with Webgility. I think of when you download orders under the new orders section and hit that post button manually, or when you hit that sync button under the product section manually, that is still an automation that, kills that manual work, right? Like if you're going in and you're highlighting an entire page of orders, or you're going in and syncing an entire page of products via price or inventory, whatever it is, that is still taking out a lot of manual work, right? That's a sales receipt that you didn't have to create, or 25 sales receipts that you didn't have to create. And then the next step above that would be utilizing the scheduler to sort of automate the process of you having to go in and click things. So whenever we talk about the scheduler being the automation, still remember that doing things manually is still doing them faster than going in and creating those sales receipts individually. But we'll always look at it from sort of two different perspectives inside of Webgility because there are multiple ways of doing it. Sometimes you don't want to use the automation tool because there are maybe limitations in the way that you do your reconciliation, or you maybe have a very specific workflow for how you process your orders and sync your inventory and
yeah,
stuff. But
that's a good point. We do have customers that use part of our automation and some that use all of our automation. It doesn't have to be all or none. There are mixes in between. We do have it so that you can automate all the orders coming into Webgility. You can then select which orders you want to post. There's even workflows that have like order updates if somebody's adjusting orders in, say, a Shopify, and they want to wait a certain amount of time before that order is completed, or maybe readjusted by a sales team and then posted to QuickBooks. So there's different workflows.
yeah,
Also, one of the things I mentioned was the fees. A lot of times if people are manually entering stuff, they're missing the fees, or they're just waiting to the end of the month and they're just grouping those fees into QuickBooks. We'll post the fees along with the orders, the merchant fees, any of the payout fees, settlement fees, those kind of things. We have different payment processors we can connect and set up. Let me go through and kind of go into
and
Shopify
while you're
here.
doing that, Angela asked a question in chat. I'll answer it right after you show what you're showing right now, though.
So I'm just going to show some orders here. If you have a few orders, yeah, putting this order data manually in is fine. What happens is, of course, what you're hoping for, and a lot of people have, is just, they're getting a lot of orders a day. They're getting it through, once you get one channel set up and you start adding more channels, you can't really do that manually anymore. You want to get a product like ours to then grab from all the different websites and stores that are configured to post into QuickBooks, and it just gets all that data, puts it into QuickBooks, and then helps you, manage that so you're not spending so much time each day adding that. There's things like discounts, refunds, along with the fees and the transactions and all that kind of stuff. There can be paid, unpaid orders. There's a lot of different configurations. We can set it up that if you're bringing your orders in, they can be paid orders, it can be unpaid orders, or they could be waiting for it to be shipped. And once it's shipped, then we download and post it into your accounting.
Yeah, and even beyond that, you can configure sort of custom order statuses in Shopify as one of the options. It doesn't work for all of the different stores, but for Shopify specifically, you can have custom order statuses and pull those into Webgility as well. So you can get even more granular with it. And to answer Angela's question here real quick as well, she asked, does the flow from QuickBooks happen automatically? To kind of expand upon what I'm assuming that means is the flow from your stores happens automatically. That's sort of the nature of Webgility, right? You download your orders and you post them to QuickBooks. The sort of opposite end of the spectrum would be, does things that are updated in QuickBooks flow back to your store automatically. And in some ways, yes. So a good example of this is if you go and update your inventory counts directly in QuickBooks, like you get a shipment and you want to update your inventory totals or your price totals, you can go in and update that in QuickBooks. And then if you have the scheduler running, if you have the automation tool in desktop running, you can have it automatically pull that information from your QuickBooks and push it to the store automatically on whatever timer you have it set for. The way that works is because we don't track an inventory number from your store. We just adjust that inventory based on what is pulled in through the orders. So the sort of cycle is that things that get updated in QuickBooks get pushed to your store automatically, and then things that get pulled from orders from your stores get pushed to QuickBooks. So it's sort of a big circle in a way, with some caveats here and there, but from an inventory pricing and I guess order perspective, it's all sort of comprehensive.
Yeah, and here I'm just opening up the scheduler, our automation, and we have automation settings here. You can have all of them set. You can have some of them set. You can sync different directions of data. There's quite a bit of differences. You can do things manually, like we mentioned before. If the automation's not on, you can even sync price or quantity. Say you receive a whole bunch of new quantity into your QuickBooks, and you don't want to wait, the time for it to slowly sync in the background. Maybe you've got it set for once an hour or every 30 minutes or whatever, and you just want that quantity up on your website right away. You can come in here, make sure the scheduler's off, and then you can select the new quantities and just push them right up to the store in this menu here for the products. I'm going to jump over to QuickBooks here. One of the key things that we recommend doing is taking the products, making sure the products are matching. So when we deal with products, that means it's either a inventory, non-inventory, group item, or assembly item. Once those products are matched between your online stores and QuickBooks, and we have mapping, so if they don't match, you can manually map them. But your key is to have those products match. So when you post the information into QuickBooks, you have the information being saved out for your accounting. Your cost of goods sold, your income account, your inventory asset account, those are all tied to the products. We're usually taking the item name number up here in QuickBooks product and having the SKU from the store match this item name number. There are some other matching that we can do, like you can match product names and stuff. The product names usually get long, they have spaces or dashes, or you may end up matching to the wrong product because the names are similar, but there was a space in one that made it think it was another product. So SKUs, standard stock keeping units, are the most common. Make sure you have SKUs in the website matching to the item name number in QuickBooks. But there, like I said, you can match other ways too. The other part to QuickBooks is making sure that you have your chart of accounts set up. Here we're saying that you want to take the orders into a clearing account. We recommend a clearing account for your orders. The reason we're doing that is because when we configure everything, we're posting the transactions into that account. We're posting the refunds, the automatic refunds into that clearing account. We're posting the expenses and fees through that account. So once that's all set up and it settles in your clearing account, and then you're taking the amount that you got paid at the bank and you're transferring that out of that clearing account to do the final reconciliation. So if you're doing like a open invoice on the orders and set it to download, like on Shopify, we have a system that downloads the payout report. Once the payout report downloads, it marks the orders as paid, gets them off your AR, puts them in the clearing account, and then you just transfer out of the clearing account to do your reconciliation. But that's why you want to have like all your fees and your refunds and stuff like that all kind of going into QuickBooks and being tracked properly through from your website to your accounting. Here you can see some refunds. These little blue arrows that were on here show that there's a credit memo on here. There's a payment processor fee. We're tracking that, and that way that correct information goes into QuickBooks.
Yeah, I think it's important because if you've been to any of our webinars or seen any of the content that we put out in the past couple of years, you might have seen the terms like multi-channel or omni-channel being used. And I think for the most part, those are sort of buzzwords within the industry and in e-commerce and in the software part of the industry as well. But I think ultimately what we want to do is make sure that you can pull in as much of your information as possible and automate as much of that process as possible. So whenever we say omni-channel, what we mean is we want you to be able to stay in one place and get as much of the information as possible. It's the reason why we've invested in AI and all of these product improvements is to make sure that you can pull in, like David said, your fees, your refunds, taxes, discounts, anything that happens on an order or can happen on an order, you should be able to pull that in on the sales receipt or on the order itself and push it into QuickBooks so that you're not having to, fiddle with extra steps in QuickBooks directly.
And I'm gonna go right in. You mentioned taxes. I'm gonna go right into tax here. That's one that we work with a lot with our customers. The sales tax on your online store needs to be set up in your online store. If you have a small nexus, we can go in and just post to a matching nexus in QuickBooks. We can take a sales tax and non-taxable because QuickBooks is set up with tax and non-tax. If you have B2B, the customers in QuickBooks need to be set up as non-taxable. The customers in the website need to be set up as non-taxable. You match those customer names. It takes on the tax settings for QuickBooks when you match those customers. If you have a large tax nexus, we go in and match that. So like if you had different taxes set up in QuickBooks, we map them from this section here. Excuse me. The thing I see sometimes is somebody will be spending a lot of time manually doing their sales tax. We don't calculate or change the tax. We just funnel it from your website to accounting. We want to match that up so that your tax is coming out right. We typically go to a line item in QuickBooks on the tax so that QuickBooks doesn't recalculate that tax and have a different calculation than what was on the website. The taxes that we're putting in there on, say, a platform like an Amazon or Walmart or an eBay, those are facilitator tax platforms. They calculate the tax, they collect the tax and remit them on your behalf. Same thing as if you have a very large tax nexus. It gets really ridiculous to try and manage that without an application, say like Avalara, Avatax, TaxJar, those kind of things, because the tax laws are constantly changing. And if you have a large tax nexus and it covers a lot of states, you have a tax requirement in a lot of states, it's better to have a software that tracks that, keeps them up to date. And all we do is funnel the sales tax from the online store into like a default bucket in QuickBooks, but it's being collected, calculated, and remitted from your website through a tax app. So there's a lot of different setups for taxes. So we work with you to make sure that that gets set up properly.
Yeah, I think the most important note is, as you said, like one, some of the marketplaces specifically are facilitator tax collectors. So you in that case, in the section that you were just showing, you would say we don't collect sales tax at all because the online store is already collecting and remitting it. Or you can have it pull in and just have it reflected if you need to pull it into your QuickBooks. But generally, the thing to remember is that Webgility doesn't actually collect sales. We don't do anything with sales tax. We just pull the information in and pass it on to QuickBooks so that you can track it and reconcile correctly and make sure that you're audit proof, so to speak. And with sales tax, I think similarly to the conversation about multiple currencies is we could do an entire webinar on that, and we have a plan for that as well. So if you're interested in understanding sales tax to a deeper level, we have actually a partner in the sales tax industry as well. Tax Cloud does a lot of the same stuff that we do. Same with Avalara. All of those sort of softwares are essentially Webgility for sales tax, right? They'll take your online stores and they'll make sure that you're compliant across all of your sales tax nexus where you're meeting nexus. So one thing to consider with all that is it sounds like you're adding another subscription, and you are, but what you're doing is trading, again, similarly to with Webgility, you're trading that time for the or that you're trading money for the ability to get time back and to, spend more time doing the things that matter. So ultimately making more money in the long run, I'd like to think.
Yeah,
And then Catherine has a question. I'm going to get to
okay.
that one after we finish up here, and we can dive into the Q&A after.
Yeah, so here I'm just showing that, down here in the bottom right, the tax, this comes up all the time with customers. So QuickBooks has a, has a tax report for all the taxes that it calculates. Now, since we don't want QuickBooks recalculating the tax and having a difference from what the tax was on the website, calculated on the website, we bring it in as a line item in QuickBooks. And that way it stays away from the calculation in QuickBooks. It also then goes under the sales tax vendor setup in QuickBooks instead of the default tax report, sales tax report. So a little bit of difference there when you're working with e-commerce than going straight with a manual order. But as you can see, our main goal is to not get behind on what you're going into your accounting. People always ask, well, what happens if I'm not running Webgility over the weekend? Well, on Monday you come in, you turn on Webgility, it gets all the orders from the weekend. We do also start with customers that for some reason their accounting wasn't kept up to date, their accounting was kind of a mess, their QuickBooks crashed, who knows what happened. And then we can have a look back added to their account where you can go back, further back than 90 days even. Get past orders, download them after everything's configured, and get proper data into your accounting from historical data. So that's also a feature that we work with, and we have customers where, they need that. So we're happy to do that. So I think I'm just going to ask if there's any other questions.
Yeah, I think now is a good time to get to Catherine's question in the Q&A, and actually even just before we get to that question, Mary asked if we had a contact for her to get with to do a refresher to like understand if her setup is optimized, especially if it's sort of a complex system. And I'll say what I said in chat. If you need a refresher, if you feel like maybe you could do some more optimizing, just reach out to our team. We are more than happy to, make sure that everything is set up properly for you. That is, again, what our whole goal is to make sure that things are running properly. If there's things that you feel Webgility is missing as far as functionality goes, that is something that we are also interested in. We actually just started a customer advisory panel about a month ago that you can sign up for, and I'll drop the link for it in chat. You can get paid to sort of beta test for Webgility and give us your feedback. You get paid based on the amount of like surveys and stuff that you do in collaboration with our team. So if you're interested in that, we are always looking for people to sort of give us their experience and help us, develop a better product. Specifically with our emphasis on business to business or B2B sales recently. If any of you are B2B, that is a really, really big insight for us because we're looking to expand those capabilities significantly. But yeah, to get to Catherine's question, an issue that she's having in her Amazon store, ASINs or SKUs are syncing inventory and price that are based on the website, not the Amazon prices because they should be different. Your workaround, Catherine, is that you turn the scheduler off at night and turn it back on in the morning after you've checked your Amazon inventories and adjusted the price levels. So what you're doing is definitely a good workaround. One thing you could do is just turn off syncing for that Amazon store. Just not even have it automate that. that is where things do get complex when it comes to syncing inventory and pricing, especially when you have different prices between your stores. If you have your website's different from your Amazon, there's some routing that you need to do to make sure that you're not just like overriding the different prices. There is, I don't know if you want to show it, David, in the like store level. Perfect. You know exactly what I was talking about. Uh, so under the sync settings area in Webgility Desktop, there is an area where you can set up multiple like sales channel locations, the fields to keep in sync, and then I'll let you explain it since you're in there already, David. You might have a better
Yeah.
explanation for that.
So there you can set up a price level in your accounting and sync that price level to a store. The most common thing is if you're manually doing a different pricing on different stores, you're only syncing quantities to the stores. You're not syncing the price from QuickBooks to all the stores, but you can sync, each store can have a different price level that you're syncing. There's also some different inventory site and quantity and weight. There's some different advanced controls. Let's go back into sync settings here. You've got automation rules here, so you can actually take a store that you have and do some different syncing. You have
Yeah.
different quantity rules and price rules that you can add in here
So
for
to like
different
kind of
stores.
expand on what that means a little bit more too, Catherine, since your situation is that your Amazon store, I'm assuming is higher priced than what your website is, you can go in under the store tab here that he has shown next to item settings and set the, if it's the whole Amazon that's marked up by like a specific percentage, that's a really easy way to do it. You can say the price is 150% or 125. It's if that's how you work it. If you needed to get more granular, then you would go into the item settings. This is a little more tedious to set up, but it'll save you from having to go in and do those adjustments every single day. So you can go in and set the price rule for each individual item so that it's a specific percentage or a lower price point entirely, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it depends on your Webgility account level also to what advanced inventory controls you have available.
Perfect. Thank you for showing that, David.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lisa, you asked a question in chat. We have a problem with sales tax incoming into QB from Shopify that's being paid by a marketplace like Facebook. Can we block that tax from coming in from Shopify? It sounds like you have experience with that specific situation, Dave.
Yeah, so yeah, we have a lot of different apps and plugins and modules that go into online e-commerce, and it's very common to have, TikTok store or Facebook store going into Shopify. There's Amazon applications that you can put into like a WooCommerce or Shopify to sell your Amazon products off of your e-commerce. Not all of those deal with sales tax properly. What we may see sometimes with an Amazon app is it's selling the Amazon items through Shopify, but it's adding sales tax to them. And you don't want sales tax on that because Shopify is putting sales tax on it, but it was sold off of Amazon really. So there's some complexities there. The taxes and stuff from these applications, those are really respective of how it comes into Shopify, how it comes into Webgility from Shopify. So if that application doesn't handle the sales tax properly, we're not recalculating it. We're not changing it. You can set up the apps themselves to be a separate store connection. So like when we go to do configurations, I'll try and keep this brief here. Let me get to the right menu. We're building in controls where we can separate these out more. Sometimes we can separate out as a separate store connection. Sometimes we can separate them out just as a different payment provider for the apps. As you can see here, third-party apps. So we've been adding more controls for those. So you can separate out third-party apps here to go to different clearing accounts. we can go and set up third-party apps in our advanced settings so that you can set up a third-party app as a separate store connection. So sometimes you can go in and just take the third-party app that might be like this number here is a Facebook Marketplace. And that will then go in as a separate store connection, and then you can put different configurations for tax and different configurations for how you're posting that to your accounting. We are working on trying to make that better. It's hard to keep up with that, but we're adding it all the time. As you can see, we've got it added there. But it's ultimately sales tax is at the point of purchase. It needs to be tracked and set up properly in the websites. If an app or something doesn't have the sales tax come in correctly, then it's hard for us to deal with that because we're just basically passing it through.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like maybe using a separate order status, or if the third party app shows up there, that might be the best way to do it. Because I when it comes through Shopify as an extension, things can get a little complicated. But there's definitely some workarounds. So I'd say if you're continue to have a problem, if after maybe you try a couple things that we just shown, we can work with you internally and we can set something up to make things a little bit easier for you.
Yeah, one of the differences between our online product and our desktop product is we do customizations on our desktop product. It's not set in stone here. You can have a request. If we don't have that configuration, people do a lot of different things with their accounting. So, or how they get their information into accounting. So we may end up being able to do a customization to help out a situation when it's, say you have a high order volume and this one item's costing you a lot of time. You can ask our team to look into it and see if we can do a customization to help reduce that amount of time that you're taking fixing something.
Yeah, and customizations, just to kind of like, build upon that a little bit. If you have a suggestion and it's something that is being suggested by a lot of other customers, a lot of times we'll just add it to the roadmap and it'll get developed out as a part of our natural development cycle. So if we get, 1,000 customers that are like, hey, we need this new thing, that's something that takes priority for us. And then for those smaller things, because you have to realize, again, because there's so many different complexities and different workflows, sometimes you're the only person asking for something. So in that instance, generally you pay us to do the customization, and what you're paying for is just for us to it's the development time. So you're essentially paying for us to spend our time building that thing out for you specifically, and then it does become available for the rest of the customers as well. So you're helping everybody else out in the future. You're sort of paving the way for future people that maybe run into that same issue. Just contact regular support for help on that. That works perfectly fine. Yeah, if you contact our support team, even if what you're asking for maybe extends beyond the support team directly, we can always route it to the correct team. If you want me to reach out to people as well, you can just email john.may@webgility.com and I can get you with the right team. So we are not opposed to getting you in contact with the right people.
We actually have a support chat built into our software. It doesn't launch on my environment here because this is a test environment. But the chat bubble here will open up and allow you to chat directly with our team. We have one on our website under a chat there. So even on our website, we have a really good help doc. Let's see here. Help center. So we have a help center that has lots of good information on it.
Oh yeah, and we just relaunched the help center. This was last week. We moved
Yeah.
from our previous help center. It's been revamped. Still more improvements to come. But yeah, we put a lot of work into making sure the help center finds what you're looking for easier and is a little more lightweight. So.
And then even on the help center down here in the bottom right, you have the chat, and that goes right to our support teams too. So They can help take care of you. You can email support@webgility.com. We want to make sure that you're always being, taken care of. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it is
That's
not
another.
24/7, but we do have people around the clock whenever we are during business hours to answer your questions. So we'd love to be 24/7. We are not that large of an organization yet to be able to afford people being around the clock. But yeah, any other questions? Anything else anybody wants to know? I know Angela asked about using Shopify reports to reconcile. If you're doing reconciliation in Shopify, I would say that it's probably a good idea to use invoices.
We
I
have
don't know
a
if you have a.
workflow. Yeah, we have a workflow specifically for Shopify and Amazon where you download the orders, post the orders to your accounting. The payout report downloads, say a Shopify payout report, which has all the fees and everything on it. When that you post as an open invoice, it goes on the AR in your QuickBooks. Then the payout report downloads. We post the payout report with all the fees. It marks those invoices as paid. Then they're in the clearing account and you just transfer them out of the clearing account to do your final reconciliation. So it's kind of a very slick system that ties it all together, makes it easier for you to see what you were paid for and what orders to reconcile. So there, we have that from Amazon and Shopify at the moment.
And Lisa asked, would you remind me how to access the recorded version of this webinar? You are one step ahead of me. So I'm actually going to post a couple links in the chat here real quick. If you go to our YouTube channel, we have a whole playlist where we upload the recordings of these webinars, and we actually send them out to everybody that attended and registered. So if you get an invite for the next Webgility Desktop webinar and you're not able to attend, you can still register and you'll get the recording sent to you automatically. So don't feel like you have to check the YouTube channel or anything like that. We'll send it to you directly as long as you registered. So let me paste a couple links here. Customer. So I'm going to post a link to the customer advisory panel if anybody wants to sign up. Again, get paid to beta test for us, not a bad deal. And then a link to the YouTube channel. And it's a direct link to the playlist for these webinars. So generally it takes me, I usually say the rest of the day just to be safe. I have to download and sort of compile everything and edit it down, make sure that it's ready for YouTube. And then I upload it and then send it out tomorrow. So I also will update our landing page for you guys to register for the next webinar. The next webinar is going to be next week, and it's going to be for Webgility Online. You are, of course, more than welcome to come, even as a desktop customer, to our online webinars. Just know that whenever we are demoing anything, it's going to be from the frame of Webgility Online. Still good conversations come of that. So if you have free time every single Wednesday at this time and you just want to, connect with other business owners or ask us questions, that is what we're here for. It doesn't have to be just for desktop or just for online. It just makes it easier when we're talking about specific features and stuff like that. I have asked all my allotted questions. No, there's no such thing. You mentioned Amazon settling that doesn't coincide with month end. Is there a workaround?
No.
Amazon is very specific.
So I'm going to go, there is accounting practices, traditional accounting practices. A lot of people will go into undeposited funds in QuickBooks. That's a accounting practice that people do. We recommend going into a clearing or holding account because we're settling out those items in that clearing or holding account. You can't take a refund and post it into undeposited funds, but you can a clearing account. So the transaction can go in there, the refund can go in there, the fees can go in there and settle out before you transfer your items out of the clearing or holding account against your bank statement. So the Amazon every 2 weeks, they're in control of that. You could call up and complain to Amazon, but I don't think you're going to get too far. What they've done is their servers are millions and millions of people ordering off of all these different companies from Amazon. And in order to have that loaded over multiple different servers and different countries and everything, they have a 2-week settlement period, and it's a different 2-week settlement period for everybody. It's not at the end of the month. So if you want to close your books, that will cause an issue at the end of a month, because then Amazon won't be able to cross back into the previous month and post the updates of that payout report when it's ready. So they are in control of that. That's a little bit of a difference between e-commerce and the old style manual traditional accounting. You do have to make some concessions. So Amazon's definitely one of them.
Yeah, and Angela kind of expanded upon that with deferred transaction posting. I would assume that doesn't really affect things on our end, because it's sort of the way that I understand the deferred transaction stuff on Amazon is that they hold the transactions for whatever reason on Amazon's side. They give you an expected date that it's going to drop, and then at that point it gets released onto, I would assume, the next settlement report, again, as far as I understand it. So it would just be exactly as David detailed it, sort of dependent on the settlement report that Amazon
Yeah.
sends.
And refunds on Amazon could go, 20 days during COVID. We saw them going 60 or 90 days for refund postings. So, those periods have to be able to be accessed for information to tie out the refund along with the order information that was previously posted. So, yep.
Yeah, and sort of to piggyback on the Amazon stuff, I've actually, so I work with a lot of our partners internally to sort of see opportunities for our partners to get feedback from us on the integrations that we have, and two, just to see where we can improve our relationships with the people that we work with. But one conversation that I had recently was with our Walmart team, and on the Walmart side, I think there's a bigger conversation that we can have about the alternatives to Amazon. I know seeing Walmart as sort of the underdog is really weird and contradictory because it's Walmart. But in terms of e-commerce, they have been the underdog for a really long time when it comes to that marketplace sort of battleground. So if you're looking to, I don't want to say get away from Amazon because I don't think that's a thing. I think you should absolutely stay on Amazon if you're on it. But if you're looking to diversify and sort of expand onto another channel that is similar to Amazon, maybe with less red tape, there still is. It's Walmart, let's remember, but they have a lot of the same capabilities, and we're actually sort of launching some new opportunities with them in the future that gives sellers more resources to sort of get started with Walmart. So look forward to that in the future. We might have a webinar directly with Walmart talking about getting started, how to lower fees, how to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. So again, just wanted to throw that out there since we were talking about Amazon. Walmart's a pretty a good second best, at least I would say for now. So cool. Well, that is all the questions we have. Again, if you have any other questions, you can ask them now. I've got a hard stop in 6 minutes, but we can answer them very quickly. If not, look forward to getting the recording tomorrow. It'll be in an email. And then if you're looking to sign up for the next webinar, again, the next one's going to be online, but generally I changed the landing page to update for next week's webinar tomorrow as well. So you'll see the landing page get updated. I usually send out an invite as well for the next desktop webinar and sort of the foreseeable future, whatever schedule we have tomorrow. So you'll see an email with an invite to kind of see what is going on in the near future. But really appreciate you guys. Thanks, David, for doing these. As always, it's great. Hopefully see you guys on the next one.
Yeah, I'm so happy we had all these people joining. I saw a good batch of people coming in and chatting with us and being here watching us. Happy to share our information and take questions and all that. So we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, perfect. And Angela, I've got your email. That is perfect. And then just one last note for anybody that attends these in the future, feel free to exchange information with other sellers. One good thing about building a community like this is that you guys get to exchange information as business owners, as e-commerce sellers yourselves. You know it better than anybody how you're running your business. So it's cool to be able to exchange ideas. So if anybody has anything that they want to brag about, if they want to talk about something that they're doing right and want to share that information, we are so here for that. So feel free to drop that in the chat. Again, we love having you guys on here. So we'll see you next time.